It's your voice, your vote in the race for South Bend City Clerk ahead of the Democratic primary. Tonight, 3 candidates vying for your support are facing off. Over the next hour, hear why they think they're best for the job and their stance on hot-button topics at the top of many voters' minds. That's on the heels of multiple controversies, from transparency to the long-running search for the next director of the Community Police Review Board, and what they see as the best path forward to establish good communication with city leaders and those who call the city of South Bend home. Special ABC 57 Your Voice, Your Vote coverage starts right now. Well, hello and welcome to an ABC 57 Your Voice, Your Vote primary election special. I'm Rich Bodee. Tonight we're inside Y Camp Hall on the campus of Indiana University South Bend for a South Bend Clerk debate. It's being sponsored by the League of Women Voters of the South Bend area and the American Democracy Project at IU South Bend. And tonight we're happy to have a live audience join us for this Democratic primary debate. Though we have asked them to be respectful and hold their applause until the end of the event. So let's begin by meeting the candidates. First, we welcome incumbent clerk Dawn Jones. Ms. Jones has held the position since August 2019 when she was chosen at a special caucus. Prior to that, she spent 23 years as a trustee for the South Bend Community School Corporation. She has a degree in business administration and management from Walden University and a master's degree in public administration from IU South Bend. Next up, we welcome challenger Bianca Tirado. Ms. Tirado worked with Ms. Jones as the Chief Deputy City Clerk, and prior to that was the Deputy City Clerk and Director of Policy. She has a degree in African American Studies from Indiana University and a master's degree in nonprofit administration from the University of Notre Dame. Lastly, we welcome Jason Banicki. Mr. Banicki is a department supervisor at Lowe's and has in the past worked as a St. Joe County corrections officer. He earned a Bachelor of Science in General Studies from Indiana University. And thank you all for joining us here tonight. Now, the winner of this Democratic primary will face Republican Tina Wilson come November. The order for the opening and closing statements has been agreed to by our candidates prior to tonight's debate. Ms. Jones, you are up first. You have 1 minute for your opening statement.
Thank you. First of all, I want to thank IUSB and the League of Women Voters for holding this event, and thank ABC 57 for being here and recording the event and for it being a very public event. Who knows what the city clerk does? It's one of the position of clerk is one of the oldest positions in the world. The city clerk's office is the starting point for municipal growth. The city clerk's office gets its jurisdiction from the Indiana Code located in Chapter 2 and is responsible for the city's integrity. The municipal clerk offers citizens information to engage them in the process. This is accomplished by the recording of ordinances, resolutions, and the processing of municipal business. It is controlled by a single full-time elected official and whoever he or she chooses to deputize. It is not a position that should be jeopardized by accepting money, agreements, jobs, and so on. You must be a person of integrity.
All right, thank you, Ms. Jones. Ms. Tirado, you now have 1 minute for your opening statement.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Bianca Tirado, and I am running to be your next South Bend City Clerk. I am committed to championing the needs of South Bend's residents. I have over 5 years of expertise and experience in the City Clerk's office. I am the candidate who will bring the people's voice to our office. I come into this race with the endorsement of Mayor James Mueller and the majority support of the South Bend Common Council. I know how to work with the Common Council and the Mayor's administration to ensure that all residents get their needs met, and I will be ready to serve on day one.
All right, thank you, Ms. Tirado. Mr. Banicki, now to your opening statement, 1 minute as well.
Good evening, everybody. I'd like to thank the American Democracy Project, League of Women Voters, and the IUSB Political Science Club for putting this event on. I did not start out this year planning to run for city clerk. While I agree with the mayor and the majority of the city council that we do need new leadership in the clerk's office, I believe it needs a fresh start. When it became apparent that no outside people would be running for the clerk's office, that's when I made the decision to run, to give the people the option of a fresh face to bring new ideas to the city clerk's office. I am a graduate of Washington High School and Indiana University of Bloomington. Most of the last decade, I've worked in sales management. Prior to that, I was a corrections officer and worked for a small local business. I have successful leadership experience in a variety of situations that I think would make me successful as South Bend's next city clerk. I humbly ask for your support on or before May 2nd.
All right, thank you, Mr. Banicki. Let's get to our first round of questions. Now, all of them have been provided by the League of Women Voters, the American Democracy Project, and local voters themselves. Each candidate will have 1 minute to respond to each question, and then there will be a chance for 30-second rebuttals. If a candidate feels the need to respond in any way, candidates will raise their hand, getting my attention, and of course, candidates, you will see the time cards there in front of you. All right, so let's begin here. The job of the South Bend City Clerk has been a point of controversy over the last 2 years. So in your own words, what are the role and responsibilities of the position? Ms. Jones, you are first.
The roles and responsibilities of the city clerk is to keep record of all the ordinances and resolutions that go through the city. Nothing can be done without the city clerk's signature, without stamp of approval. When the bills come in, they have to have my name and my approval on the bills. The role is unique because it is a role that stands alone. It's a role that is an elected official. It's a full-time elected official that is in this role. So the role of the city clerk is important. It's important to reach out to the community. It provides information to the community. It provides access for the community to have access to the bills, to the resolutions, and to everything that's going on in the city.
All right, thank you, Ms. Jones. Ms. Tirado, you are now up. You have 1 minute.
The role of the city clerk's office and the city clerk is to be the administrative arm to the Common Council. The Common Council needs the city clerk and the office to function so that the council can serve their residents. And it's very important that the city clerk also works with the mayor and his administration to ensure that legislation is filed correctly in the office and that the residents have the information needed to see what's upcoming on the Common Council meetings. It's also very important that the city clerk has a good working relationship with the Common Council and the mayor to serve the needs of the residents.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Banicki.
Again, as has been stated, the role of the clerk is to maintain Common Council records in a professional and transparent manner. That includes maintaining the meeting minutes, publishing the agendas and meeting notices, keeping record of the ordinances and resolutions. You're also the keeper of the city seal, and you have to attest to many official city documents. State law requires this role to have 14 hours of continuous training every year to maintain your accreditation with the State Board of Accounts. It is the arm that puts the information out to the public. So it is imperative that this arm functions smoothly with, like was stated, the mayor, the council, but also in a way that works for the citizens of South Bend, works for the people, and gets that information out timely and promptly in as many different manners as possible so it can be consumed by as many people as possible.
Okay, let's move on now. If elected, what is the first thing you will address as South Bend City Clerk? Ms. Tirado, you are first.
The first thing that I will address in my role as city clerk is bringing transparency and accessibility to the office. For transparency, it is important that the residents can find bills and that the Common Council has what they need to be successful in their role. As far as accessibility, it's really important that the residents know how to find legislation. It's imperative that the city clerk works with the Common Council to work with residents to bring accessibility into the neighborhood so that they can be invited into the legislative process.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Banicki, if elected, what's the first thing you will address?
The first thing I would want to address is to modernize the technology of the clerk's office. I was at a meeting roughly a month ago or so where it was pointed out that it takes roughly 9 hours to transcribe 3 hours worth of meeting minutes. That's just a really inefficient use of taxpayer dollars. In this age, if you have the right computers and the right processors, there's a lot of AI technology out there that you can literally download the audio file into and have generated transcripts within minutes. So, and if you can free up that kind of time, there's a lot of other policies and programs you can implement and new steps within the technology where you can make information much more accessible to the public as opposed to having to waste man hours just generating meeting minutes.
Ms. Jones, you are now up.
I have a rebuttal.
You have a rebuttal? Okay, we'll come back to that, but first you are up.
Okay. My top priority as a city clerk is building a strong and empathetic and competent staff who can endure the climate change in the atmosphere of the city. When I first came into the city clerk's office, the staff was not really happy. They felt betrayed because they didn't know all the information. They didn't know that the previous clerk was leaving at the time. They also felt a little angry that I was there, that the whole process had to take place. So one of the things that I did was try to build a camaraderie with the staff, and that's something that I will do. And I will also be asking for additional positions to accommodate the growth of South Bend. Usually, in the past we've had processed like 150 bills, and then 158 bills. This past year, we processed 190 bills. So that's a lot for a staff of 3. My staff has been reduced considerably. So the thing I would do is build my staff, and I'm confident that in doing that, we will be even more efficient than we already are.
And you wanted to address something? Your rebuttal?
Yes.
You have 30 seconds.
Okay. We do have a software system called PrimeGov that I work with, and what PrimeGov with the minutes is we have you can go to the agenda once the meeting has taken place. You can go to the agenda and you can you can tap on a specific bill. The video goes directly to that bill as soon as you put your mouse on there. And we do very minimum minutes now because of that reason, because it's recorded and you are able to get to the bill or what happened at the meeting immediately. So we have the technology, we have the technology and we all work together with it.
Okay. Several recent issues, like the Community Police Review Board, which still is not in place, and the hiring of a consultant who is now a candidate, underscores the importance of cooperation between the clerk's office and other city entities. How will you ensure effective communication between elected officials in addition to transparency? Mr. Banicki, you are first.
Absolutely. So as I've stated before, I've spent the last 10 years in sales management. That's required me to work with people as young as 16 and as old as 80. I've had to tailor my communication style to each individual and each person, and that's something that would transfer with me no matter what job I have. So when you need to make sure, that HR is doing background checks, I've done that. When you need to make sure that all the information is checked off, I've done that. When you need to have hard conversations to improve performance and get people up to the standard they need to be to deliver the results for the people of South Bend, I've done that in a work environment where we continue to see staffing cuts. When I first started in management at Lowe's, we used to have 16% of our sale on payroll, and now it's down to 8%. I continue to grow sales every year because I hold people accountable. I have the leadership to deliver results, and that's something that would continue if I was elected city clerk.
Okay, Ms. Jones, you now have 1 minute.
Yes. I plan to have a series of speaker series, a series of town hall meetings that would include concerns and issues that the community has, that they want to talk about, that they need to talk about. And when the Citizens Review Board was housed in the office of the city clerk, what I did was I developed the job description, the timeline of implementation, recruited, hired a director, as well as provided an avenue for all citizens, including the elected officials. The elected officials, as well as the community, was invited to be a part of a national organization that provided training, the National Association of Civilian Oversight of Law Enforcement. They provided the training. They also did one-on-ones. They provided the training specifically for elected officials, specifically for community members, specifically for those that would be involved in being on the board. So they provided a gamut of information, a gamut of training, And that would include the elected officials. They would be included in the town hall meetings as well.
Okay, Ms. Tirado, you now have 1 minute.
The issues of South Bend residents are a top priority for us all. I will always remain professional due to my experience when working with the Common Council and the mayor. It's really important that when you're having tough conversations with our elected officials, because you will, that you always remain professional and you have those conversations behind closed doors and not in front of the media. I will put collaboration with the community, the council, and the mayor first to best serve our residents. And due to my experience, that's why I have the endorsement of the mayor and several members of the Common Council, because I'm currently doing that.
Okay, thank you. Now, how would you describe your interpersonal skills, and what specific experiences can you point to that show that you're a good communicator and collaborate with others? Ms. Jones, you're first.
Well, I have 2 degrees from Indiana University, from IUSB actually, including one from the School of Public and Environmental Affairs. I'm a professional writer. One of the criteria for receiving this renowned degree was community service. I've collaborated with several organizations in this community, including the United Way, the South Bend Community School Corporation, the NAACP, the Urban League, Manchester College, IUSB, Stone Soup, and the United States Congress. I've collaborated with workers, 4- and 5-star generals, national consultants, project directors, general contractors, architects, educators, superintendents, and college presidents, among others, to construct schools, develop curriculum, and help design cities.
All right, Ms. Tirado, you now have 1 minute. Sure. Now, how would you describe your interpersonal skills, and what specific experiences can you point to that show you're a good communicator and collaborate with others?
Due to my experience as being Deputy Director of Policy and Chief of Staff, I have the experience of communication and the relationships with our council, with our mayor and his administration, and our residents. And it's important to have those relationships and communication skills to get the job done. At the end of the day, residents come in, they need assistance, and it is our responsibility, one, as the city clerk and as the city clerk's office, to direct them properly to those resources and follow up.
Okay, Mr. Banicki, now 1 minute for you.
Absolutely. So my interpersonal skills, I definitely tend to be an empathetic, driven leader. I like to be passionate for my people. I want to help them grow. I always think that's an important skill to have. Whether it's working in retail or whether it was working as a corrections officer, there are times when I deal with people when they're at their absolute worst moment of their life. The refrigerator just went out. They just got arrested. And you have to be able to talk to those people in a way to calm them down and be able to work with them and help solve their problem. Even those who get arrested have problems that they need help with, and that's the skill I've developed. I've worked through the bureaucracy of county government when I worked at the jail and when I worked at JJC both. I spent years volunteering as a Little League coach, coaching 13 and 14-year-olds, and working with the Challenger division of children with special needs, helping them play baseball and get to experience life just like a normal individual for a time. So I think these skills are all things that would help me as a city clerk.
Okay. Thank you, sir, for your answer. The South Bend City Clerk is paid a nearly $80,000 salary, yet the City Council paid more than $50,000 for a consultant now turned candidate to assist the clerk's office. In addition, the clerk's office paid more than $10,000 for other outside work to the daughter of the incumbent. What factors should determine when the city should pay for a consultant or outside work? Mr. Tirado, you now have 1 minute.
The Common Council has the ability to seek additional help when their administrative needs are not being met. And the Common Council will do that if they don't have the relationship with the city clerk's office. So it's very important that the city clerk has the relationship to best serve the council to get the job done.
Okay, Mr. Banicki, same question to you.
Absolutely. So again, the Common Council has the power of the purse for the city. But one of the keys to any spending for government funds is that it should be public, it should be transparent, and it should be open to public comment. When you have spending for outside consultants done behind closed doors with no public input, that's not good government, that's not transparent government, and that's not serving the citizens of South Bend. We need to make sure that we're putting the people first. We're not looking at special interests. We're not trying to help our friends, and we're not making deals behind closed doors. This isn't new. This happened when Ms. Jones became clerk as well. There was a deal between Mr. Scott and Karima Fowler to be a consultant, and that was done behind closed doors. It's time to stop the backdoor deals and the politics behind the closed doors and bring things public and transparent, and it should always be open for public comment whenever you spend taxpayer dollars.
Okay, Ms. Jones, first the question, then the rebuttal.
Okay. The duties of the city clerk are written in Chapter 2 of the Municipal Code, which gives me the authority to determine who helps with my duties. We are not comparing apples to apples here. According to Chapter 2, I have the authority to staff my office with what I need. I have the authority, the Common Council does not have the authority to staff my office. Therefore, the claim of hiring someone to do my job is simply not true. Everything that is done in the office of the city clerk requires the signature, stamp, and seal of the city clerk, the city. In South Bend, it would be illegal to get an outside consultant to come in and do that in my proxy. The only people that can do the work in my office is those who I deputize. I also enlisted my daughter's assistant because she has, we were paying up to $2,400 a month for minutes. And so I enlisted her assistance because she would work for half of that or even free, not free. But anyway, so she has a degree in English. She has a degree from IUSB in teaching and education, and she's a professional writer. She's an administrator. So I didn't just grab anybody. I grabbed someone that could summarize the minutes for the council so that the city of South Bend would get clear minutes.
Okay, Ms. Jones, now is this part of your rebuttal, or did you want to continue? You have 30 seconds for a rebuttal as well.
Oh, okay. So by enlisting her, I cut the rate in half. Now, I can hire people in my office. I don't have to ask to hire people in my office. I have that authority from Chapter 2, which says that I can staff my office however I want to staff my office, whatever I feel that needs to be. In addition to that, my office has suffered some staff. They've removed some staff and some money from my office. So I have to do what I have to do to get the job done so that the people of South Bend have the minutes, they have what they need, and that is what I work for.
Mr. Tirado, you raise your hand for a rebuttal. You have 30 seconds.
As with any detailed or highly technical matter, outside consultants can be effective and a smart expense in some situations. However, in this situation, the city clerk should be completely open and honest with all contracts, especially if it's taken out of their budget.
Ms. Jones, you were mentioned.
Okay, I was open and honest with this contract, and she was just serving as a vendor. And I was open and honest. And the council knew that my daughter was doing the minutes. Unlike, I can't say that the same. They knew everything that was going on with the contract. The contract said that the consultant was to staff or train my staff. Nobody can hire somebody in somebody else's organization to train their staff. The council can hire whatever consultants they want to hire, just like I can. But you can't hire someone to work in my office. It's not legal.
All right, we need to move on now because we have a lot more questions to get to. So let's stay along the same line, though. What steps would you take to maximize the efficiency and effectiveness of the clerk's office? Mr. Banicki, you are first. You have 1 minute.
So I've already mentioned it's time to modernize the technology. No matter what kind of outside service you're using or what kind of software, if it's not AI-based in this day and age, it's inefficient, it's taking man hours, and it's just not doing the job well enough. Also, one of my minors is in education, so and having 10 years in leadership experience in the workforce has made training a key part of what I do day in and day out. There's not a day where I'm not training a new person. In this era of hard to find employees and quick turnover, I spend most of my time training new people and trying to get them up to speed to deliver results in a very competitive space. So training people in the clerk's office on modern technologies, on modern processes, on how to use new technology to deliver results for the taxpayers would absolutely be part of my process to increase efficiency, including new hardware, new software.
Okay, Ms. Jones, you now have 1 minute.
We have new hardware and new software that we just got about 3 years ago when I first came in office. And so, as I mentioned before, we can all work on the new hardware at the same time, which wasn't the case before. But actually, this is my dissertation. The title of my dissertation is Strategies for Catalyzing Key Stakeholders' Engagement for Supporting Nonprofit Organizations' Sustainability. The Office of the City Clerk is a nonprofit organization that impacts the entire city. I would organize, again, town hall meetings to address the difficulties that our residents face, but also reach out to our residents through, the app process, virtual meetings. It's so many different ways that we can engage the community. And the purpose in the city clerk is to engage the community, is so that bills don't get passed, things don't get passed or put off just because, someone doesn't want to talk about it.
Okay, Ms. Tirado, same question to you.
Due to my experience in the clerk's office, I'm prepared to train my staff on day one. It's very important that we get to proper posting of agendas and notices and training them on the policy that needs to be passed and how to do that process. I also will focus on inclusion and accessibility, meeting the needs and language barriers of our Spanish community by building translation programs so that we can bring accessibility to our different communities in our city.
Okay, Mr. Banicki, you raised your hand for a rebuttal. You have 30 seconds, sir.
Absolutely. In this day and age, Moore's Law is dead. 3 years is an eternity in technology. We've seen in the last 90 days, ChatGPT, which is an AI software, go from having a 10% chance of passing the bar exam to now a 90%. So 3 years is a lifetime in this day and age. And when I keep hearing my experience make me ready to train people day one, then why weren't people trained and ready to go this year and last year? If that experience level was there, why is the clerk's office the way it is now?
Ms. Jones, your rebuttal, 30 seconds.
I have 2 rebuttals. I don't know if I can do it all in 30 seconds.
30 seconds.
Okay. People are trained in the clerk's office. As a matter of fact, the technology that we use is not 3 years old. It continues. If you work with any technology company, they continue to improve themselves on a regular basis. The company that we work with, they have improved themselves, changed their name, done a lot of things. And the reason why the staff is trained the way they are is because of the technology, because everybody can work on the agenda at the same time. I can work on it, my deputy can work on it, my chief deputy can work on it, because it is a lot, but the system actually trains us.
Okay, Ms. Tirado, you have 30 seconds. Your rebuttal.
During my time in the clerk's office from 2017 up until April of 2022, I trained our staff was fully trained, our office was functioning.
Okay, we're going to move on now. The clerk is a liaison between the public and the city. What steps will you take to help residents understand local laws and find resources? Ms. Jones, you're up first.
Okay. Well, I've taken several steps already. I had a radio program where I was explaining the process, the members of the council, what their role was, where their districts were, what my role was as city clerk, what legislation was passed, the titles of the legislation, what they meant. And now I also have a newsletter, because I did have a corner of the newsletter, but it was removed, and that was explaining to some people what some of the bills were. But I have a newsletter now that explains a lot of how the process goes, what is a tax abatement, what is legislation, what does this terminology mean. I want for our residents to know so that they can be involved in what's going on in the city, so that they can be involved in and understand that when they see a tax abatement, they know what that means. When they see an alley vacation, they know what that means and how it could impact their neighborhood depending on which neighborhood the alley vacation or the tax abatement is.
Ms. Tirado, same question to you.
Can you repeat the question?
Sure. The clerk is a liaison between the public and the city. What steps will you take to help residents understand local laws and find resources?
It's very important to bring accessibility to residents, meeting residents where they are. So not only including them in the legislative conversation, but also working with council members to go into the neighborhoods, work with the neighborhood association, and bring that accessibility there so residents can feel included in the process.
Okay, Mr. Banicki, same question to you.
So again, many neighborhoods have neighborhood association meetings once a month. I would attend all of those as part of my role as clerk to make sure that I'm accessible. But again, going back to technology, there are a million ways now to get information to the public, whether that's which things we already use like YouTube and newsletters, or things like podcasts, and even using new formats that much of the younger generation uses like Instagram and TikTok. There's a lot of interesting and innovative ways to make the information available in an engaging way in a short format for many people who want to learn about city government or to teach them about what functions city government really performs.
Okay, on a scale of 1 to 10, how would you rate the effectiveness of the clerk's office in helping businesses navigate council procedures, which ultimately promotes economic development, and how would you help move that number higher if elected? Ms. Tirado, you're first.
I would rate the number of the clerk's office as a 5 because the relationship with the common council and the mayor is not there. The biggest thing that I would do and a priority for me coming into the clerk's office is ensure that our staff is trained and that we have staff in there that can meet the needs of the common council and work with administration to get the job done.
Okay, Mr. Banicki.
For me, in my experience working to grow businesses and working with business leaders and having worked in a small local owned business as well, the biggest thing you can do for those people is save them time. It's time to go out. It's time. You don't wait for them to come to you. You engage them. When you see somebody getting ready to open a business, you reach out. You find them. You don't wait for them to show up to the office. To put a number on it, 1 to 10, that's hard to say because I don't see the inside every day. But what I can tell you is we saw this year where a company that just opened a new business over just a couple blocks from me on the west side of South Bend hadn't been getting their paperwork to file out their tax abatement forms properly for a couple of years now because the wrong address was put on the form, and it took the business realizing, oh, we messed this up. Nobody in the clerk's office caught it. Nobody in the council's office caught it. So it's, again, reaching out to them and not waiting for them to come to us to fix problems.
Mr. Banicki, I'm going to hold you to that number. What do you think it is?
I'll give it a 6.
6, okay. Fair enough. Ms. Jones, you are now up.
Actually, I would give it a 7, simply because you can always improve. But we have a really good relationship, maybe not with the top person in administration, but we have a good relationship with all the departments in administration. And we reach out. We make sure when actually the businesses have to go to them to complete an application or a petition. And so what happens is when it comes to us, we interact with the business and we know if they haven't completed the paperwork appropriately, we have a list, we have a checklist. We make sure that they are completed appropriately, and if they have, we move forward with stamping it and publicizing it. If they have not, we give it back to them. We tell them what they need to do, if they need to go back to talk to the department heads, or if they need to do something else. I had a person that did not get his petition approved, so I explained to him what he needed to do. He could get an alley vacation, what he wanted to do, what he needed to do, and he ended up purchasing all the property in that area so that he can move forward with his plans.
Recently, a press release was sent out by the incumbent regarding a prayer vigil for a teenage murder victim, citing his name prior to South Bend Police releasing it. Ms. Jones, you've said that sending out press releases for community members is a common practice. The South Bend City Council attorney called that release unethical and a violation of city policy regarding campaigning activities. When should and shouldn't the clerk's office send out press releases for community members? Mr. Banicki, you are first.
So particularly when it comes to an event like that, you have to wait for the police to make that public announcement. You're talking about somebody's life, somebody's son, somebody's daughter, and they should not find out through an accidental release from a public official. That should come by direct notification from the police department. They make sure to reach out, they go to the individuals' houses and notify these individuals. It is one of the hardest parts of that job for those police officers to have to deliver that news and give that message, and there should never be a time when anything like that occurs any other way. Outside of that, if it's just a run-of-the-mill press release, then it's your job to get those out there. You're part of that publishing arm. So that should be something that you handle regularly, routinely, and do properly. Follow the law, and it's pretty simple.
Okay, Ms. Jones, you're now up.
As a mother of 5 sons, when I first heard, I was taken back. And so I do want to take the opportunity to offer my apologies to the chief. But I can say this, the name wasn't just released when I released it. The name was on Facebook. We have been in communication with the family. They knew. What we wanted the family to know is that the community was supporting them, that the community, that us in the community felt their pain, not quite like they felt it, but this has been happening over and over again. And your emotions you get caught up with your emotions with this kind of thing. And so, no, it was not a campaign thing. This is something that I do all the time. I work in the community all the time. And so to call for prayer in the community for a family who had a devastating thing happen to them, I didn't look at it as campaign, and I'm sorry that everybody else looked at it that way.
Okay, Ms. Tirado.
Press releases are a common practice of the city clerk's office, and they're normally meant to send out on behalf of council members, or should they be sent out on behalf of a community member, then it's more so of a toy drive or something informative. In this instance, the name had not been publicly released, so it was inappropriate for that to have been released through the clerk's office.
Okay, moving on. Several of you've both all mentioned several times the relationship between the clerk's office and the mayor's office. So please explain your vision of how the mayor and the city clerk should work together, and be specific about the role you envision for yourself as clerk. Ms. Jones, you're up.
You work together because legislation is passed. You get legislation or you get bills from the mayor's office, from administration, from the department heads and things like that. So I have not did my job in not communicating. I communicate with whoever I need to communicate to get the job done, and I do it politely and professionally. I have never not. As a matter of fact, whenever I see the mayor or anybody from his office, I make it a point to speak and to be polite, because at the end of the day, I have a job to do. And I cannot speak to people or not do my job because of someone else and how they act. That has nothing to do with me. I have to get the job done. I have to do my work. I have to communicate. I have to talk to people. I have to write letters. I have to do all that kind of stuff. And none of that has stopped me. As far as the council, I'm still polite to them. I still make sure they have their snacks. I make sure that they have everything that they need, the agenda, whatever they need. I make sure that it happens. I am still polite, and I enjoy my job, and I enjoy talking to them.
Ms. Tirado, you're up.
The city clerk is the liaison between the common council and the mayor. So having conversations that are needed to function, having conversations that are needed for our local government to function, those conversations have to happen. So having that relationship. It's also very important that the city clerk works directly with the mayor, because residents come in needing resources from administration. So having that relationship with the mayor to communicate that to department heads is really forward pushing our government.
And what is the role you envision for yourself, though, specifically? How do you envision yourself doing that?
I envision myself having a good relationship and communicating often, standard meetings, having vision sessions with the Common Council to see what their initiatives are and how do those initiatives fit with our residents, and showing up for residents with accessibility.
Okay, Mr. Banicki, now you.
So, that's one where you have to be an active participant. You have to work to build that rapport and that relationship and build the trust. to be honest, in any communication situation. And critically, when you're the clerk, you have to build that with, again, the mayor's office as well as the council. Because not only are you the liaison, you're kind of that first touch point for a lot of the public. A lot of times they will go to the clerk's office looking for information, and you're going to be the one to kind of help set them to the right city office or the right individuals to get their needs met, to get them the right information. I'm a very hands-on leader in the workplace. I wouldn't change that 1 second. I think your best leadership comes from the front. You don't just boss from the back.
Okay, moving on now. Earlier this year, the Common Council canceled a meeting due to an alleged violation of an open door law. Now, that law requires the clerk to give notice of a meeting 48 hours prior to that meeting. The incumbent said that the notice was posted on time. The council president argued it was not. Critics of the clerk alleged a dereliction of duty, while the clerk accused her detractors of playing politics rather than expressing concerns in a timely manner. City residents and voters have been left unsure of who to believe. What is your understanding of what happened, and how can we prevent such dramas and delays in the future? Ms. Tirado, you are first. You have 1 minute.
There is a SOP on hand in the city clerk's office for the deputy director of policy that states how to properly post notices. And if I was city clerk, I would ensure that those SOPs and procedures are followed to meet the needs of our residents so that they know what's happening with the business. It's important that the meetings are posted properly, 48 business hours, so that residents have enough time to go through the legislation.
Mr. Banicki?
So again, yeah, it's making sure you're following the state law. It's very clear in there what the expectations are, what has to be delivered to the public, and how that has to be delivered. It's not a gray area. It's not wiggle room. It's a matter of state law. It's not even a matter of policy in the clerk's office. It's set forth statutorily that you have to have those published 48 business hours in advance. And now, the one caveat to that being, and I think it might apply in this situation from my reading of the state law, is that 48 hours does include if you don't move the meeting location in time, then you could post those, at the end of the year before, and those count as posted meeting notices carry the law for the day. So it's not something where it has to be reposted every time unless you're going at a different time or a different location.
Ms. Jones?
Okay. There are several ways that we post meetings. We post them for the year, we post them annually, we post them, and actually at that actual meeting, I had the posting in my office in front of the window when you first come in. According to Chapter 2, you have them posted in a high traffic area where the meeting is going to take place. So you have it was right between my office and the council members' offices. And so it was posted at that time. According to the law, it was posted in front of my office. And what they wanted is for it to be posted on the door or in front of the chamber, which it has been ever since, because once you find out, once you learn, once you have an understanding, then you post it where it needs to be posted. But it was posted, and it was posted 48 hours before, as it always is, and it's posted on the internet, it's posted on the website, it's posted, and it has to be physically posted, and it's my understanding it could also be posted downstairs in the beginning at the county city building.
Mr. Tirado, you had a rebuttal. You have 30 seconds.
In this instance, at the end of every year, there is a list of common council meeting dates, the 7 p.m. meeting dates, and where they're posted. And that is posted in advance. In this particular instance, the committee meeting notices need to be listed, and they need to be posted outside of the location 48 hours in advance. So the notice that lists the common council meetings do not serve as a proper posting notice.
Okay, let's move on. The South Bend Common Council created the Community Police Review Board and gave the oversight to the clerk's office, as the clerk operates separately from the mayor. The idea there was to avoid bias, but there were complaints about the hiring process and the former pick for director Joshua Reynolds' background. Now the mayor is poised to make the new hire. Should the mayor be making that decision, or should that decision have stayed with the clerk? Mr. Banicki.
There's a reason it was given to the clerk. As was stated, it's that public appearance of conflict. You don't want to have the mayor who appoints the police chief then appoint the oversight arm as well. Now, we can discuss whether it was the right hire or the wrong hire, if all the steps were followed or not in the process to hire the first one. But that doesn't mean the minute you make one error that we just throw out the whole process and turn it over and now create even just the appearance of a conflict of interest. You know, when I worked at the jail, that was always the first thing I told people when I was training them. I said, even the appearance of a conflict of interest in this kind of role is in and of itself a conflict of an interest because it causes an erosion of public trust. And I think that's critically important, and that's why it should remain with the clerk's office and should be separate. And the rush to do it now after they stalled for 2 years in an election year makes no sense to me.
Ms. Jones.
That was the problem. They gave me the duty and the right to hire and to staff the Community Police Review Board. However, the mayor was still involved with the hiring. He wanted to tell me who to hire, not to hire this person because of what he had been told. So although it was in my office, he was still trying to control who was hired. No, he shouldn't hire him. And no, he shouldn't control whoever has the ability to hire. They gave me that ability in the ordinance. It said the city clerk should appoint the director. And when I did that, then there's like, no, that's not what we want. We want to appoint the director. And so that's what happened. And so no, he shouldn't, it's a conflict of interest.
Ms. Tirado.
Per the ordinance, there were a list of duties that the city clerk needed to follow in order to properly hire, et cetera. And there was no communication regarding what was happening in the city clerk's office. So unfortunately, the ordinance was amended and there was no option but to put it into the mayor's office because the common council is part-time and they could not physically hire an employee. They can hire contractors, but in this instance, given the director's job description, because it was a full-time employee, they could not hire that. So they had to amend it to move into under the mayor.
Ms. Jones, 30 seconds.
There was plenty of communication because I communicated with the council via email. I communicated with having the council involved with the National Association of Citizens Over Law Enforcement. I had the community involved. I communicated with them. I also took each of them packets of all the applications. It was 40 applications. I took them to each of their homes. I communicated with them on a regular basis. They had a timeline. I developed a timeline. They wanted that. They wanted everything that they wanted, I gave them.
Okay, let's move on. One of the responsibilities of the South Bend clerk is to promote and enhance participation in local government. Yet, in the 2022 primaries, voter turnout in St. Joseph County hit historic lows at just 7%. What steps would you take to increase voter turnout? Ms. Jones, you're first.
Actually, I'm doing that right now. Going to different events, different places, communicating with people on one-on-one basis, communicating with everybody, with seniors, with young people, with families, whoever I can communicate with, I communicate with. I attend events, and I also do virtual events as well. And hoping, and that's something that I've been doing nearly all my life, is trying to get people to come out and vote and to be included in the process, especially the primary process, because that's the process those are the votes that impact your life directly.
Ms. Tirado?
Awareness and accessibility. Awareness is so important for our voters to understand like who they're voting for. And so it would be great to work with the council to go into the neighborhoods and bring accessibility about that awareness. So doing voter programs and ensuring that voters know who's on the ballot and they are educated about who's on the ballot.
Mr. Banicki?
Absolutely. So 4 years ago, I ran for South Bend Common Council. And one of the things I did, I went to almost 2,000 doors door to door. And I think that's something that's critically important. That was something that was missing in the city of South Bend last year, to be quite frankly honest, is there was just not the engagement from either elected officials or candidates with individuals in the city. And there's just a huge misunderstanding sometimes from citizens in the city that they don't understand that county elections affect them just as much as city elections do. So it's an education piece as well. It's reaching out directly to them, holding events, participating in voter registration drives, doing everything you can to raise the profile of the elections inside of the city. I live in the 6th district. We are the lowest voter turnout district in the city. And that's just an unfortunate situation. But again, that's never going to stop me from going out to people in the neighborhoods, going to events and trying to improve that number, to get people out to the polls.
Okay, I want to talk about some of the technical aspects of the job. In terms of government, what skills and knowledge do you have to make and keep records accessible in online platforms? Ms. Tirado, you're first.
So the skills that I have is collaboration, and teamwork. It would be best to work with, in this instance, because we have a technology forward council, and council wants to incorporate technology into their duties. Working with our department heads to make sure that we can build a technology forward program to include residents in the process and reach, and with that platform, you're able to reach many different residents with that.
Mr. Banicki, you've mentioned online platforms. You have 1 minute.
Absolutely. So I have experience in creating and editing YouTube videos and podcasts, both myself and for others. And that's a skill set I can bring right to the clerk's office to help make information much more readily available. There are times where we have written meeting minutes and we think those are enough, or we have the YouTube videos and we think they're enough, but there's never enough when you're talking about getting to the public. That there are people with different levels of abilities and different things, so we've got to reach them however it is easiest for them to consume the information. When I went to IUSB for a year, I was part of editing and publishing the very first undergraduate history journal here. So that's kept both in paper and online form. And that's a lengthy process to create something like that. And that's a set of skills that would be critically important to making sure that government information gets out accurately and efficiently.
Ms. Jones.
Actually, I've done some of that. I work with IT. IT is a part of the service that we pay for in our budget with the clerk's office. So I work with IT. We have built a video to explain the legislative process. We also have an interactive form where citizens can go in, complete the form, and it comes to the email of the city clerk. In addition to that, as I mentioned earlier, I would hire, that's one of the positions that I would do, is we definitely have to hire someone who knows technology, not just have a little bit of, a little bit of knowledge of it. We have to hire a person that does it on a daily basis, because you use technology for marketing, you use technology to communicate to people, to communicate the bill process, to do all of that. You need a person to do it. And so I would hire someone specifically for that reason.
On a scale of 1 to 10, how would you rate the relationship between the clerk's office and the Common Council, and how would you raise that number higher if elected? Mr. Banicki, you're first.
So again, having, my work schedule keeps me from attending as many council meetings as I used to, but from the few I've seen this year, it's if I'm giving it a 2, it's probably being generous. The lack of communication is readily apparent to anybody who's in that room and watches online. There's definitely a wide chasm there. And the key to rebuilding that, as I stated before, is building that rapport, building that trust. Taking the time to work with these people as not just council members, but as individuals, to understand what they want to accomplish, what they expect out of the clerk's office, because the council has a critical role in helping drive that clerk's office. So it has to be a collaborative process. It can't be one side bickering at the other or nipping at the other's heels. It's got to be teamwork. And again, like I've worked my entire life in large teams, and it's about delivering results with those teams, and that's important.
I'm going to hold you to that number. What is it?
Like I said 2.
2.
I said 2.
My bad, didn't hear that. Ms. Jones, you now have 1 minute.
Okay, to be honest, I would say that probably won, because we could do better. You can have retreats. I have suggested that before, to have retreats. The issue is, in the beginning, when you have a new staff or a new council come in, you generally have things, activities that you do that with. We were unfortunate. We could not have those activities for 2 years. We very seldom. We didn't even have a council meeting together. We're just trying to do a job based on COVID, based on not knowing one another, based on fear. Everybody's scared. They don't want to get COVID. They don't want to communicate. They don't want to come together. So we did a lot of communication online, and we did a lot of communication virtually. And that is something that you have to do. You have to come together. You have to have that human interaction, because that's who we are. To build relationships, you have to have that human interaction. So that's something that I would do, is make sure that we had more activities where we have to communicate, where we have to work with one another.
Ms. Tirado?
I would say the relationship between the two is a one. It's just simply not there. And in order for the two entities to work together, it has to be there, because communication needs to happen. I have that relationship, and you have 9 different council members. So they all have different needs, and it's important to be a team player to meet the needs of our resident and get things done.
Candidates, thank you. We are quickly running out of time, though, so let's move on to our closing statements. Each candidate has 30 seconds to make their case one more time. Mr. Banicki, you are first. You have 30 seconds.
Absolutely. Like I said, it's time for a fresh start in that clerk's office. I think anybody who's interacted with city government in the last year plus has seen that. It's time for somebody who understands technology. Like Dawn said, you need somebody who doesn't just have a brief understanding. You need somebody who lives it and breathes it. There's not a bit of software I don't study. I build my own computers. And to be honest, fresh start doesn't come from somebody who was there until April and then was immediately hired as a consultant right after. A fresh start comes from a true outsider who doesn't have any conflicts of interest or any backdoor deals with the current council.
Thank you, sir. Ms. Jones, your closing statement.
My journey has been one of resilience and dedication to public service. I earned my stripes working in a congressional office, public housing, workforce development, YMCA Urban Youth Services with youth and education reform. However, it is my personal story that is a testament to who I am and why I do what I do. I was once a homeless single mother who escaped troublesome marriage and moved back to South Bend from Chicago with my 4 children and the clothes on our backs. I persevered through the challenges of being a single mother and domestic abuse survivor, relying on my faith, resilience, and the compassion of others. My personal experience drove me to dedicate my life to standing in the gap for the underserved and being a catalyst for public policy. My personal experience and professional expertise have made me a champion for the underserved in the community. I am dedicated to using my knowledge and skills to make a positive impact in the lives of those around me. I hope to be an inspiration to all who know me and a true asset to our community. Vote for me to maintain our city's integrity. Vote for me on May 2nd as your city clerk.
Thank you. Little more than 30 seconds. Ms. Tirado?
As you have learned tonight, it is crucial that our next city clerk is qualified, competent, and committed to championing the needs of South Bend residents. That person is me. It's crucial that our residents have someone who is experienced and that they can trust. I am the most experienced, and I know how to work with our Common Council and the Mayor's administration to ensure that all residents get their needs met, and I will be ready to serve on day one. To learn more about my campaign, please visit biancatirado.com, and I look forward to your vote on or before May 2nd. Thank you so much.
All right, candidates, well, thank you for sharing your views with us tonight, and thank you to Indiana University South Bend for hosting us here at Y Camp Hall and for our live audience as well. Round of applause for the candidates. Now, we'd also like to thank our debate sponsors, the League of Women Voters, the American Democracy Project, with the support of the Political Science Club, and a special thanks to Dr. Elizabeth Benyon for all of her hard work. How about a round of applause for her as well? ABC 57 is hosting another debate here March 28th, so you'll want to come out here for that. Don't want to miss that. And don't forget, the Indiana primary elections are Tuesday, May 2nd. You heard that from some of the candidates here. You can still register up until Monday, April 3rd. Early voting starts on April 4th. It's ABC 57's Your Voice, Your Vote. I'm Rich Bodee. Have a great night, everyone.